What I'm going to try to do here is show the communication model. I'm going to simplify it a little from what I would do if I had an actual whiteboard with pens and such. But the first thing that I'm going to do is, and I'm going to tell you in advance, my skills as an artist are extremely limited. This is kind of two people talking. And one is the sender, and one is the receiver. I've got a little slash here because in a lot of communication, I'm not only sending, I am also receiving, and vice versa. Right now is very much one way. I'm doing this on a recording. If you ever see it, you're not going to be able to have your reactions affecting me at all. But in a classroom, in a Zoom session, sitting down, having a cup of coffee, you might be the one talking for the most part, but I'm still sending a message by nodding my head or making eye contact or not making eye contact or all kinds of other ways that we send back messages. We also have, though, before we do anything, we've got little boxes, little filters that we go through. And these are encoding a message and decoding it. And what that means is just, I can't send a thought to you and have you just pick up the thought. I've got to put it into some form that you'll understand. Language itself is, of course, a code. If you've studied any other languages and you notice my lettering is something of a secret code, you know, for example, that we'll have words that might sound similar in different languages but have very different meanings, or you have words that look similar in print but have different meanings, or all kinds of different things. Even for those of you who are in the United Kingdom, you might know that a friend of yours might say that they were very pissed last night. And we might think, oh, what were you so angry about? And they mean they had a lot to drink. Okay. Encoding is simply, if I'm the sender, I'm going to try to put it into a way that is going to make sense for you. If you're the receiver, you're going to try to make sense of the message. So if I own a restaurant and you're working and your shift is almost done on a Friday, and I say, so you have any plans tonight? You might decode that as, I would like you to stay to work. Or you might decode that as, I'm asking if you would like to go do something social. Or you might decode that as, what a nosy guy this person is. Or simply, I'm making small talk. There's all kinds of different ways you could decode it. I'm the boss again. Let's say, again, we work together and I've got good news. You've got a promotion coming up. If I want to encode the message such that you don't get alarmed, in other words, I'm not just going to say, see me at once. That to me is an alarming message. If instead I say, great news, see me as soon as you can, I've encoded that to be a little less scary message. At least I think so. Now, this is going to try to be an arrow. And what this is the channel or the medium. In other words, how we're communicating. Right now, I'm communicating on a Zoom. It's a recording with a very bad whiteboard. You might communicate face-to-face with someone. You might be doing a Skype or Zoom or FaceTime or anything like that this holiday season with family back home. You might text people. You might email them. You might send actual letters. You might use Morse code or passenger pigeons and such. There's all kinds of different media. In other words, one version is the medium, plural are media. That's where we're going to create our meaning, but first we have to have kind of a Venn diagram here, which is where we overlap, what we've got in common. Because that's where the message or the meaning is created. If you don't speak any English and I say, that's supposed to be an M, and I say, please pass the salt, all you're going to hear are babblings. That doesn't mean anything to you. I'll even do something that's close to English. East play, aspe, they, alt say. If you know Pig Latin, I just said, please pass the salt. If you don't know it, it's meaningless. You and your best friend might have so much overlap that when you say, hey, would you like to go to that party on Saturday? And your friend says, we could do that. You know that either means, yes, absolutely, let's do that. Or That is theoretically an option. However, I prefer not to. I wish that you would give me something else, but I don't want to sound rude. And so that is why I've expressed it the way I have. And you know all that in a moment. You might even know that if they raise their right eyebrow, that means I'm interested in this. And if they raise their left eyebrow, it means I am disgusted by this. Around all this, we've got context. What's our relationship? What's our situation? For example, if you're active duty and you work with someone who outranks you, you might address them by their title at work. Maybe socially, you address them by their first name. Maybe if you're in the locker room together, you address them by insulting names or nicknames that you would say wouldn't be fit for public consumption. You and your significant other or squeeze or schmoopy, if you have one, maybe in public you use first names, and in private you've got cutesy little names that everyone else would be made to feel ill by hearing them. Maybe you insist on a certain level of formality in some situations and a very informal level in others. That's really going to depend on what our context is, and that includes things like who wants something from someone else. If I want something from you, I might be a lot more polite than if you want something from me. I'm not saying I'm going to try to be impolite. I'm just saying I'm going to be nicer probably if I'm the one who's in need. Finally, we have noise. Anything that makes it more difficult for the communication to take place. Environmental noise. If our connection goes bad in something like this, if the lights flicker, if the room has a particular smell to it, if we're in the same room, or the band is playing extremely loudly at a bar or a pub, the chairs are really uncomfortable, or the room is extremely hot. Any of those could make it to where you're not focusing as much on the process of communicating. If you cannot improve the environment, you might sometimes have to just say, we give up. Receiver noise. Could be that you're not interested at all. You've got a barrier between you and the sender because you just don't care. Some of the commanded training that we all go through, I don't know about you, but I've got training where I don't have any idea what they're talking about. And so I'm not even interested in trying to find out, because it doesn't apply. One year when I was going to go to the Middle East, I had to go through training in how to prevent frostbite. I had a barrier between me and that because I really didn't think that was going to come up. It might be that you've got news coming up, something good or something bad, and you're focused on that. Or you've got a physical thing. You're hungry, you're thirsty, you've really got to whiz. Obviously, for some of those, you might have to take care of them right away. But if you know that you've got some obstacles within yourself, you have to work to overcome them if you want effective meaning created. Sender noise, particularly when we're talking about public speaking, the sender can be his or her own worst enemy. And that includes things like vocal defects, stuttering, saying like, whatchamacallit, people who have an odd way of pronouncing, or who are mumbling, or who are too quiet, or sometimes too loud. People who are just shouting the whole time. I had a group of students once who were from Tennessee, and they all liked to dip tobacco, and they all mumbled, and I had to basically say, you got to get rid of something here. Because they had what I consider to be thick dialects and mouths full of tobacco, and they weren't speaking up very loudly. So I could almost never understand them the first time through. Making weird eye contact, or staring into one corner of the room, or looking down at the floor, or just looking at notes the entire time can be a way of distracting. Too many hand gestures, or hands that are held in an odd position. People pacing, people standing differently, or practically dancing around the room. There's all kinds of different ways that we'll be talking about that senders can create noise, and we want to try to minimize those. Bear in mind, however, if you compensate with something else, your energy, or you are so charming, or so funny, or so interesting, or just so much about it that we are willing to put up with the fact that you're not actually doing an easy job of making it that we can understand you, it still might be an effective presentation. However, for most of us, we're going to be better off if we reduce some of that speaker noise. So that is my quick overview on the communication model that we'll often be using in this class.